call this meeting to order. The chair notes that quorum is present and flexible.
Have we been recording this all this time?
Yeah.
Just
the last
30 seconds.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 2.0, additions, revisions to the agenda. I'm going to move 4.7, consider approval of sale of Arlington lot number 801 down to new business to 6.7. Any other changes? Okay. We'll go on to correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meetings. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair, give name and address, and limit comments to 3 minutes. Any public comments? None. Okay, we've got some correspondence, 3 letters. First one is from Alexi McHugh and Garrett Jackson, and I will just read this. Kaylin Lane at the Chamber had asked that I share this with you guys, but it's addressed to me, to the Honorable Judge Elizabeth Farrar. I'm writing in support of Kaylin Lane and her work at the Condon Chamber of Commerce. As a bit of context, I'm an AmeriCorps serving in Baker City, and one of our cohort is serving in Condon. I had been wanting to get to Condon for quite some time. The opportunity opened up the other day. My partner and I, who came from the East Coast to live here, stopped over for lunch. We were strolling the block and happened upon a lovely and inviting sign for what would turn out to be the Chamber of Commerce. We weren't expecting much and thought we'd grab some flyers and head back out on the road. We headed into the building and were greeted by a real ray of sunshine, Kaylin. As soon as we stepped inside, we were greeted warmly by Kaylin. We'd never met, but she'd heard about the AmeriCorps program and knew the work we were doing. She invited us into her office, totally unexpected, and we had one of the nicest chats of our entire Oregon journey. We mentioned our interest in the Painted Hills, and she not only showed us where we could go, but showed us the back way into the hills that would get us off the main road, a saving grace because I drive the main roads all the time for a living. She also told us of the idea of a bundled vacation package through the hotel, which could serve as a nice jump-off point for the hills and fossil beds, both of which we would like to spend more time in. We would love to see this work continue and be marketed far and wide. Condon is well situated to be a hub of tourism for the natural wealth surrounding it. I would love to see a future in which more people are able to experience such a unique and varied landscape, both natural and built. Simply put, our time with Kaylin was a true delight, and her energy is contagious. We've been fortunate to travel the entire span of the country, have met many wonderful people, and created numerous lasting memories. Condon wouldn't be the same without Kaylin, and I hope we can return soon. Best regards, Alexa McHugh and Garrett Jackson.
Oh, nice.
I thought that was nice.
Not a surprise.
Not a surprise. Second one is from Diane and Nick Welp. This is regarding railroad crossing delays. And it's actually addressed to Alan Anderson, but it was sent to us as well. It is understood that the railroad crossings at Cedar Springs Lane are permanent and cannot be altered. What is not permanent and could be altered is the way the public using the roadway could be accommodated to the ETAs on arrival and departures by the trains. It has been stated by Watco and the site that it is difficult to determine the times the train will be on the tracks crossings. We understand that the trains are requested that they not be on the crossings between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m. to allow site workers to leave the area without the delays the public at large and businesses experience. However, that does not always work, as the school bus has been delayed several times during that time period. Knowing how train schedules are computer updated constantly online, we are wondering if this could be an answer for the delays on Cedar Springs Lane. If one expects to travel on Cedar Springs Lane, could online access be available to interested drivers so alternate routes could be considered before being caught at the crossing? Another idea would be to place signal lights notifying drivers that train traffic will impede travel on Cedar Springs Lane further from the crossing gates to allow choice of routes. The trains are longer today than previous years and delays on crossings greater than in the past. The situation will not ease with 2 rail lines now available for possibly more train traffic to the site. Without an off-road around the crossings in times of delay, you need to address the problem for the public and businesses using this route. The trains occupy the crossings twice daily, as does the public. The public and businesses are impacted by this problem. Surely there is a solution if you look for one. Respectfully, Diane and Nick Crow. So I'm sending that for you, Sherry, for the advisory council. And then the third one is from the Condon Child Care, dated January 3rd. It's from Jennifer Bold. It is with great appreciation that I submit this funding report to the county. Your continued support of the center is pivotal in providing economic development opportunities. 2018 has brought many changes to the organization. We successfully completed the new building and moved operations over in June. We jumped in with both feet and undertook a fast-paced summer full of kids and fun. A collaborative effort to create a weekend take-home project for food went very well, and we sent home 250 bags of food with children. We are currently in our 4th year of Early Head Start Child Care Partnership with Umatilla Moro Head Start and our 17th year of Head Start, 9 of those years with Umatilla Moro. The new center has allowed us to allow an after-school program designed specifically for the school-aged children, and we serve 15 children daily. Overall, we currently have 36 active families with 54 children receiving care, which is fantastic. As you know, the current legislative session will be investing in the workforce, providing early education and care. Condon Child Care is poised to capitalize on this opportunity and bring local early education and care up to living wage standard and work toward providing benefits. My goal is to have them recognized as the professional teachers that they are. Moving forward, wage reform will continue to happen, as well as positioning staff for retirement in the future. I anticipate the court will fully support this endeavor. The 2018-19 allocation was used to apply the finishing touches to our environment and retain the team that has been built over the years. We look forward to continuing our relationship with the court and providing growth opportunities for families who choose to call Condon home. Sincerely, Jennifer Bold, Executive Director. And then she sent a bunch of their income statements from the previous year, in case you're interested. Okay. 4.0, consent agenda. Want me to read out what's on here?
I was going to say, do you have a comment on any, or do you just want me to jump right in?
No, I think everything in here that had any legal ramifications, Ruben's signed off on, so.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We approve the consent agenda consisting of consider approval of December 19th meeting minutes, consider approval of January 9th meeting minutes, consider appointment of Justice Court Pro Tems, consider release of budgeted funds for the Port of Arlington, Willow Creek Irrigation Feasibility Study, consider release of budgeted funds for OSU Extension and second quarter program payment, consider approval of 221 Potter Street sale contract, consider approval of Zale right-of-way application, new route, consider approval of medical examiner services agreement with NCP HD. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Let me clear off my piles of stuff.
Me too.
So nice. Go right through this. Okay. So we are back to unfinished business 5.1, discuss future plans for Shutler Station batch plant. Where we last left off, I believe we were going to make a decision on if we feel that we would like to continue to own it. That's the first question. And if not, then is there a benefit to have it in the county? Should we look at, for instance, whether the Port of Arlington might be interested in it, that sort of thing. So, first question, should we own it?
Well, my question about another party's interest, did the port express interest? Did they make contact with you, Sandy?
So, no, not since the last meeting. Prior to the last meeting, Peter Mitchell had reached out saying that there was a third party who had asked about it, potentially buying it, which led us to sort of put it to the port would that be something you would be interested in also with the port taking ownership of it? I've had some brief discussions with a couple of port members, and they're sort of waiting to see what the court does. I think there is some interest. I think they see value in keeping it in the county. They just don't know, they haven't really talked about what they might do with it, how that would work.
Well, I'm still of the same opinion I was. I've talked to some other people and gotten a little more information, and I still don't feel that the county needs to be in the batch plant business. I know it's being utilized now, and they're, is it Hood River Sand and Gravel that has the
They've
one
got
at
the
Weatherford?
They got the sublease. Oh, yeah, they got the one up on top. Yeah.
So they brought in a portable one and put it closer to their project. But they're still using ours, I think, for the Leading Juniper project.
They're required to have two plants. They have to have a plant and a backup as part of the contract. So whether they're using theirs as the primary and ours as secondary or vice versa, I don't know. It's going to depend on how production goes and if there's breakdowns and stuff like that. But they do have to have two plants. And to clarify, I think at the last meeting, we thought that the current lease ended at the end of April. It actually ends at the end of February. So we're on a much shorter timeline there to have some sort of decision and let them know what we're going to do. Because for that project, they need it probably till June to get for this windmill project.
And Sandy, just to add to that, and I might be wrong, this is just going off of my memory from months ago, but when we initially leased it, we leased it to an outfit who was going to use it for an ODOT project. And apparently the batch plant is capable of producing cement that ODOT approves of, whereas most portables do not. So just an additional thing to consider.
I mean, I'm still with you, Sherry, of the opinion, I don't think that the county itself, I mean, if you talk to Nathan about revenue that comes in off of it, it's a loser for us financially. We don't make back what these upgrades would cost. I do think there's maybe some benefit to having it in the county. So, I mean, where I think I'm going is that if the port is interested in it, with stipulation that they not turn around and ask us to pay for the upgrades, because otherwise, what's the point? If we're just going to pay for the upgrades anyway. But if the port will take it on and assume responsibility for upgrading it, and they feel that there's a need, that it seems like it's a better fit under the Port of Arlington's mission than under our general mission.
Yeah, and if we do decide to sell it, we do need to sell it as is. That's the whole point, is not to put a bunch of money into it and not get those monies back.
Is it gonna make it till June? Do they lease? I mean, or if it just
Well, I mean, there's
dies, we
there's
just
no way to
sell
know.
it?
It could never break down again. I don't know. It'll break down this afternoon. There's just no way
Could be
to know.
broke down now?
Could be.
We don't know.
But in terms of the lease, it's if the Port of Arlington was interested in taking it, we could surplus it over to them, and then if the entity that needs it through June could then sign the lease with the Port of Arlington. So instead of it being us that has to extend our lease, if we are able to line things up, potentially we could have it go over to the Port of Arlington. The Port of Arlington would sign the lease then if they need it for the rest of their current project.
And I think our lease is just about up.
Yeah, it's up at the end of February. And it's good. The conditions to extend it would be for another year, the way it's written.
So what are you thinking?
Yes, the port idea sounds good. Sounds good. My concern was what you already mentioned, so.
About them not then having us pay for these upgrades anyway?
Correct.
Okay. So I don't think we need a motion until we hear back from the port, do you think?
No, I would advise just maybe a consensus of the council to contact the port and see what their level of interest is.
Okay.
And then if they're interested, could maybe bring documents to start the surplus process at the next court meeting.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Does that work? Consensus? Okay. That's what we'll do. We're out of the batch plant business, hopefully. Okay, moving on. Non-Partisan Commissioners Ballot Initiative. I just wanted to give you guys an update. So when last we met, it appeared that we needed to have this on the ballot in time for the primary ballot that would be coming out, I think May ballot. Ellen has since learned that actually there's a little quirk in Oregon law that says on odd years, it can only come up on the November ballot. So so that is to say, I think we'll still push forward on that, but the timing of that has been extended somewhat. So Ruben and I will still be working through what that process looks like and putting in place a schedule and all of that. I just wanted to update you that the reason it's not coming up immediately is that we have gotten clarification from the Secretary of State's office that actually, because it's an odd year, has to wait till November. So that's the update on that. 5.3, discuss strategic planning, next steps for goal setting. I reached out to a facilitator who I worked with in my previous job. It's a husband-wife team that worked with a client of mine, previous client, on some strategic planning that I thought worked really great. And so I reached out to him, and he and I have scheduled a meeting for next week to talk about kind of what I'm thinking we're needing from him so that he can give us an estimate to bring back to the court. So that's where we are on that. I'm hoping by hopefully the next court meeting that I'll have an actual figure and kind of a plan to see if this would be a good fit for us. And if it sounds good, then I think we'd look at maybe scheduling something, maybe March, depending on what their calendar looks like on their end. So that's the update on that. 5.4, discussion of county funding to Frontier TeleNet. Okay, I've got notes here. So since we met last time, Frontier TeleNet has had 3 meetings. So we've had 2 regular meetings, and yesterday we had a work session. The first thing that I want to, and I promised obviously that I would keep you guys updated on what's going on. So this is partly at what's going on, but also some new recommendations that I want to kind of share with you. So the first thing I want to say is that Frontier TeleNet's situation financially is perhaps not quite as dire as what was originally presented to the court in December. At a meeting last week, Jeannie, who's the bookkeeper for Frontier TeleNet, basically told me the December bills were paid. That's of course before any of our money went to them. And that it appears that they have enough money right now to cover January's bills and possibly a good chunk of February's bills, depending on what accounts come in the interim. There's a big payment that's, or a big invoice that's pending with one particular client that would be a pretty good chunk of the money that they need to cover quite a bit of February's bills. Wheeler County, on the day that we met, approved a loan of $100,000. That money, because of the funds that they're taking it from, must be paid back. They do not have an option for us not paying it back. The same time, in the interim, Sherman County approved some final loan documents. The Frontier TeleNet board met last week to approve those loan documents, and there was some concerns from Judge Morley in particular about approving the term of the loan because it was a 6-month term, and that of the likelihood of us being Frontier TeleNet defaulting on that almost immediately. And so Sherman County seemed comfortable with the 6-month term, but Judge Morley did not seemed comfortable with that. And so there was some suggestions floating around about maybe extending the term of that to 18 months instead. Like I said, Sherman County approved the 6-month one at their court date, so they seemed okay with that. But basically where we left it was that we met last week to approve the loan documents. We ended up tabling it because of the concerns that Judge Morley raised, and that I'm expecting those will come back up before the Frontier TeleNet Board on Friday when we meet in Boston. So that kind of gives you an update of what all the players are up to. So from my perspective, I am getting more information from them, from Frontier TeleNet, from Jim Deason in particular, more financial information, more information on the status of projects that were ongoing when Mike Smith was terminated.
Has that been a struggle?
Initially it was until very recently. And I think it's just the transition that happens when you're transitioning from one board to another. So I don't think it was an intent to keep me necessarily out of the loop. It was just there's the stage that has to happen when we're transitioning from one board coming into a new one. There is definitely some work being done to better organize the information, I would say. But from my perspective, the numbers seem to shift every time that I get paper from them. So sometimes it looks, which is kind of indicative, where in December it was like we don't have money to pay for the December bills, and now it turns out we actually do have money to pay for the December bills and the January bills, and maybe part of the February, so there's some shifting that's happening. Part of it may be just accounts that have come in that they weren't calculated when they first, but I have some concerns about how fluid that situation is and how I don't feel that I have a clear picture and that the board yet has taken the steps that we need to take to get us on the right track. So all of this is to say that I think we need to maybe reconsider whether the grant that we approved without really any conditions is the best way to go. And so I would like us to reconsider that, possibly to even resend that temporarily. And I don't even know, actually, I want to rephrase that. Not necessarily even resend it temporarily. Resend it and then see if there's a better way for us to provide support in a way that actually moves Frontier TeleNet toward taking the steps that I think they're going to need to take to put themselves on firm footing. So specifically, some of the things that I think what we might want to consider instead of just a grant that has no strings attached is saying to them that there are certain things that we are willing to pay for, that, and whether we decide that the grant or a loan, I think will be something we need to decide how we would want to structure that. But for instance, I would really like to see us, insist is a strong word, but I feel like it might be necessary, on bringing the financials in-house into one of the counties. I think that each of our counties has some standard accounting practices, some expectations of how the funds are run, the transparency of those funds, all of those things that I think would be a benefit to Frontier TeleNet at this point. I've already spoke with Nathan and Ellen about this idea, and they are completely on board and raising their hands to bring it into Gilliam County, if that is what it takes to be able to get a clear picture of where we are financially. And so that would allow Nathan and Kelly would be able to comb through the finances, make sure that all the loans and everything, all the documents that are behind those numbers they'll be able to flag those for us so that we can figure out where we're missing things. Ellen's office is happy to cut checks and make sure that all of the finances are flowing through the same controls that our budget process in-house flows through. One of the advantages of that, of course, is it gives Frontier TeleNet, in essence, 4 staff members working on this project for no cost to Frontier TeleNet, which would allow them to reduce maybe some of their costs on their side, some of the consultants they're using. And right now, the telecom attorney, Jim Deason, is doing the bulk of this work, which, if you've ever paid for a telecom attorney, it's an expensive rate for what is in a skill that we actually can provide in-house for much more in a more cost-effective way. So that's one of the first ones. Some of the other things that I think we should consider offering to pay for is for an auditor and an audit of that whole system. I would still like to bring it in-house, but then make sure that we're paying for.
When was the last time they had it on?
I think they have their regular annual audits.
They'd be required by law to have an annual audit.
But, you know, obviously, there's some pieces that, to my knowledge, the auditors did not highlight any problems with how they're handling their finances, but I think the way that they're handling them is perhaps different than how we would handle them within our county structure, if that makes sense. I think it would be helpful to have folks who have handled it within the county structure before, looking at these books just to make sure that things are in order. And I think we'll be able to get there. There's a bunch of regulatory requirements, filings that are coming up that we just heard about yesterday at a work session that all kind of revolve around the finances being in order. And those are due like literally in about a month and a half. So getting the finances in order is sort of priority one. And I think if we can convince the Frontier TeleNet board to bring that in-house, allow us to provide that as part of our contribution. So not, you know, like I would be counting this as this is part of our contribution that we're giving, to then get that piece straightened out. The other things, we talked about this before about the turnaround consultant, but I think the offer that would be what our funds are going to. So rather than allow the board to just spend it on anything they deem appropriate, that we actually are pushing forward the idea that there needs to be a turnaround consultant that is putting this house in order, and that we are willing to pay for that. Because my concern is, frankly, I'm one vote on the board. So I only have so much leverage if the other two decide that they want to spend it on something else. I don't have any ability to prevent that from happening. But if the court adds some strings to it up front and Frontier TeleNet agrees to that, then that puts some teeth behind this needs to be spent on actually turning around the organization. And then the last piece was there are some things that Day Wireless has identified for us as projects, things that they feel that the system could use. Like for instance, one of the towers lacks a backup generator of any sort, and it's one of the ones that serves Gilliam County directly. And so that would be sort of the fourth thing that I would feel comfortable if we, but I wouldn't just hand the money over to Frontier TeleNet. I would feel more comfortable saying, we'll handle the cost for this specific item, this generator or this thing that is necessary to make sure that the system is as reliable as possible. So that's kind of my update and where I am. I know it's a total kind of 180 from where I was 2 weeks ago, but a big part of the reason that I thought we needed to do the grant was because I was under the understanding that they were out of money, totally out of money. That does not appear to be the case. And so I think there's an opportunity to take a step back and give us an opportunity to be more strategic in how we support Frontier TeleNet in turning the situation around.
Yes.
That's my presentation.
Definitely knowing where our support is going monetarily is really important. And not just for Frontier TeleNet, but for some other things that we keep giving money for that we're just saying, here's some cash and go spend it however you want. I think we need to be more conscious of what our money's going to and why.
Yes. I agree. It's good to hear that our staff is on board with
Yeah,
an idea
it is.
like,
Yeah,
because that's a big, that's a kind of a big commitment.
and that came really from, it was a suggestion that Nathan made actually. When I went in, I said, the funds seem to be shifting. I don't have a clear picture of where they actually are and what information they still need. And that piece is really hard because I think the whole key to all of this is the money, obviously. And so he had suggested that would be an efficient way of making sure. And Kelly, who was sitting in there, raised her hand and said that she would be happy to just go through and just item by item, figure out what documentation we have, what's needed, what previous all of the things that Jim Deason is trying to do right now, but he's trying to do for Georgia. Here, we also talked about, I should mention this as well, that we also talked, right now, the Frontier TeleNet files are sitting over in Morrow in an office that's Mike Smith was using. It's no longer being used. They're just sort of sitting in an office that's not in the courthouse. So they're not really that easily accessible. So we talked about needing to bring those over to where the finances are so that Kelly and Nathan just can dig into files. If there's something missing, they can go through and identify exactly what's in the record, which has been a disconnect because Jeannie's in Fossil, the records are in Morrow, and so there's a lot of I don't know where the contract went, I don't know where and so this way, if we can just put it all in one building, I think we may have a shot at actually getting things straightened out in a transparent way where we can also just pop in and ask our staff what's happening with this, where are we on this, and I feel confident with our staff. They're very professional, as you guys know. I think they're one of our best shots at getting this straightened out. So.
With them being a 190, them there or I can't talk, sorry. Is there any thing that we need to do or any problem with us becoming say the fiscal agent or whatever for this other entity?
No, there wouldn't be a problem with us being a fiscal agent. The issue I wrote down, and I'm going to have to get back to you on this, is whether we can have our employees working for a 190, because a 190 is technically a completely separate entity. So whether we need to do something with the job classifications or whatnot, I do need to look into on that issue. But as far as acting as a fiscal agent, that's not a problem.
Any other questions, concerns about it?
Well, I'm glad to hear too that you said that's part of our contribution, because I was thinking.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
And that's a big undertaking, but a good idea.
So how do we rescind our grant?
The county approved the grant, but we haven't approved the grant agreement, I believe it.
Oh, that's true, we don't have an agreement. Haven't done anything.
So do we not take action, or do we need to make a formal motion to rescind?
I think you need to make a motion not to go forward with it in some way.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But we don't actually have a signed agreement to technically rescind. It would be just a motion to, to table this agreement until it can be reworked.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table a grant agreement with Frontier TeleNet until it can be restructured. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you for that.
Yeah, well, information is changing, so.
Yeah.
And that's, that was part of what was sort of troubling at the December meeting that I was at, that, we were looking at two different sets of information, and you couldn't match
They
them
didn't
up.
jive. Yeah, and I'm
Tell what the
still,
monies were.
And then now it seems like it's completely different from.
I'm still running into that, yeah. And part of it is that invoices come in, right? So some of it is natural that it would change. But I think the way we're trying to approach the problem from Frenchie TeleNet's perspective, may not be the right combination of personnel to get it done, basically. So, okay, I am gonna move on.
Do you want a motion to make this offer of us taking on the financials?
Do we need a motion for that, or should we just
No.
see? My hunch is that the initial reaction, I have not even broached this with anybody on the Frontier TeleNet side, so it may be, it may take them a little bit of time to consider whether they even would like to go this route. So,
I think the way to go is to bring it up at the meeting on Friday, see what your reaction and feedback is, and then decide what sort of legal documentation needs to be drawn up from there.
works for me.
But it is the
I
consensus.
was gonna say, it
support.
seems, it appears that we have a consensus. on
Yes.
this.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Moving on to new business, 6.1, consider approval of weed control IGA between the weed department, Morrow and Wheeler counties and ODOT.
So I've reviewed this agreement and I have a few issues with it. We need to add the gravel stockpiles. I met with Don Farrar and he said that it doesn't have the list of stockpiles as things that need to be sprayed. If we don't spray the stockpiles, then we spread the gravel and we have a ton of weeds all over. And then in addition, there are some problems. At one point in the agreement, it says that the state shall be responsible for any project costs beyond the estimate, and it gives the estimated amount, and then that statement is directly contradicted in other agency obligations by saying that this project will not exceed the estimate. So that's somewhat minor. After talking to Mr. Farrar, he said he wasn't too concerned about that, but I'd like to get it clarified just so that there's not an issue with that later. I want to add a term to section 4 that says, should this agreement be terminated prior to completion of the project or final payment, payment shall be made for work completed and accepted as of the date of termination. This contract was an adaptation from a 1-year contract to a 3-year contract, and I don't want to get 1 or 2 years into it, have it terminated, have us just have done a bunch of work, and then they say, oh, contract's terminated. So I want to be sure that as we're performing the work that we're locked into being paid for it. It references some exhibits that don't have the rates that they're supposed to, and references paragraphs that, like it says we need to maintain these maintenance obligations in paragraph 3, but that actually applies to paragraph 4. I got this in PDF. I don't have the ability to make those changes. And so at this point, what I need to do, we can go 2 routes. I can see if ODOT will make those changes, and you can approve it right now subject to those changes. Or I can, if you're not in a hurry with this, I can bring up a revised one after getting the Word version and getting the okay from ODOT at the next county board hearing.
I mean, I think we could just move it, don't you?
I do too,
I
and I
think that's a good idea.
I haven't had a chance to talk to our weed guy yet, but I did contact him this morning and say that because of the cold, I was going to push it back a
I
little bit.
appreciate that,
Yeah.
because that would have come back to my house.
I know, but I did talk to I did manage to meet with the road guy.
Because, well, I mean,
And share my,
Yeah.
and as a general rule, he wouldn't be spraying in February anyway, I wouldn't think, so my hunch is that it could come back on
so
the.
he hasn't indicated that, is he indicated that there's any kind of time-sensitive nature on?
Did he?
Well, I think that the big push on it is that Morrow County, Wheeler County, and ODOT all have to approve it also. So the sooner we can get our changes and move it forward, then it can keep going down the line, because we're just the first of 4 signers here.
Yeah, but
Right.
we want it to be a good contract when it goes
Sure.
out for signature.
let's do this. Let's get those changes approved and authorize me if I can get those changes approved, because getting something approved through ODOT sometimes it takes an act of Congress. If I can get those changes approved, that I can forward it on to the other counties so that they can get the ball rolling.
And take it up at the same time, because there's no reason that it has to be us. We could all approve it in the same week.
True.
We all have the same agreement.
Well, and I don't know if it has a counterparts section, but I could add to the end, oh yeah, this agreement may be executed in several counterparts, all of which taken together shall constitute one agreement.
Okay. So we'll table that one, bring it back first week, our first meeting in February.
With the consensus that if I can get these changes, that I send it off to the other part.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with this. You guys good?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, moving on, 6.2, consider approval of Transportation Department STF grant application. Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, for those of you at home who do not know what the STF is. Sandy, do you want to just give them an overview of what it?
Yeah, so these are just state transportation funds. It's a competitive grant offering from the state that they would like to apply for. They may get the full amount or any portion of the amount, depending on how much competition and how much funding is being asked for by other entities. This is a really good grant for the transportation department because it has, or I guess I should say, it doesn't have that many conditions on it. It's able to be used to fill in where needed, whereas a lot of the other grants are very specific and can be used for this source. I think that the match that she's mentioning there is not really a request for a match from the county, but it's to use matching funds from her other grants against this. So it's really not a negative to the county in any way. And it's, you can see she's got a number of items that she would like to utilize it for, which may or may not be put forward depending on how much funding actually comes in.
Questions about it?
Yeah, I don't think I have any questions. Do you, Commissioner? I don't.
Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the Gilliam County Grant Submittal Request Form for transportation from Marla Davies. The grant amount is $236,000.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Gilliam County Transportation grant request. I'm going to go ahead and say for the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, so it's clear what the grant request was for, in the amount of $236,000. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, I got distracted there. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Got a lot of paper today. Okay. So next one, discuss modernizing, restructuring county grant and loan programs. Just one second, I gotta find my paper here a second. Oh my. Okay, so I am suggesting to the court that we consider some work sessions to take a look at the different funding pools of money that we use and put some guardrails around them. So specifically I'm thinking, thank you, this is helpful. set my own thing aside. So specifically, I'm looking at the annual budget requests that come in from the SIP discretionary, that come in during the regular budgeting cycle. Developing policies and procedures for loan requests. And then also taking a look at our special projects grants. And then a consideration of whether our current staffing for how we would staff that in essence. If we're going to put guardrails and have applications and things like that, how we want to approach reviewing those in an orderly fashion in a way that makes sense. So, and I'm suggesting this for two reasons. One, I think, we've got some SIP funds. We're obviously very blessed that we have funds that we can invest in all of these good ideas. But I think, as we all know, those are going to go away at some point. And so I think it's important for us to be strategic now about the kinds of investments we're making and why we're making them, and putting in place some accountability measures so that grantees are reporting back to us about what the result is of that investment, so that the public has a clear sense of why we make the investment and what they can expect from it. But the other piece too is I would like for us to put this in place so that we can cut out the people who come to us throughout the year making requests for the next good idea, and that we create an orderly way for projects to come before us in a way that we can compare good projects to one another and make decisions that are more strategic than this just happens to be the individual that's in front of us today kind of thing. So to be a little bit more structured, I think that will also help with our court structure, our agendas, to make sure that we're not getting bogged down by everyone else's good ideas. I mean, we want to welcome those, but I think there's a balance. If we can create a structure where we can consider those ideas in a more strategic way, then that allows us to be more efficient in the other court business that we need to get. So, as a starting point, I put together a suggested calendar for us to take a look at. This is, of course, just a draft. And I also probably scheduled more than we're going to need because I think some of these maybe we could get done in one work session, but some of these maybe we would spill over. So I was looking, though, so that we don't sort of, because it's a big undertaking that this would be. So rather than try to do them all in one work session, I'm recommending that we split out the different processes. And I put the SIP discretionary fund first because if we are going to put substantial guardrails on it, I think we need to have those in place before the budget cycle kicks off, which starts in March. That's kind of how, and I put special projects grants last because those usually come in July, correct?
They're awarded in July, they'll come in June, I guess.
June time. So we have a little bit more
Yeah.
time for some guardrails on those if you're interested, if we end up being interested. The idea would be just very structured work sessions on each of these topics, and then obviously if there's things that need court action, then we'll have to bring it before the court as we need to. So initial thoughts on the approach. Is this something first question, is this something we want to undertake? Is it worthwhile to do this process?
Yes. Answer for me, Sherry. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Definitely. Do we have, this was my question, some type of template or something that would be a model for us to look at, to see some different ways to go about?
I don't have one currently, but we could, before the work sessions, see what, for instance, on the SIP discretionary, we could call and see how Sherman County has distributed those.
Yeah.
I know that Morrow County has a business loan program over there, so we might be able to look at their business plan and
Right.
see how they,
Yeah.
and just
It'd be
kind of borrow
interesting
from
to see.
neighboring counties if there's something that we like, or at least just start as a basis. And then I would ask for all of these that we have, Nathan and Kelly participated. I've already kind of mentioned that this was something I was going to ask, and they are on board for being part of that
Great.
process, because they've seen it, you know, a couple of times now. Is the structure, does this seem to make sense? I know it's
Yes.
aggressive.
Yeah,
So we may see about, you know,
Well, I liked how you put if needed.
if needed.
Yeah.
I did that for your
Thank you.
benefit. So, okay. And then generally are these dates, like if we were to schedule, the first one is in 2 weeks on February 6th
In Arlington.
in Arlington. So I'm thinking probably what we would do for these dates that coincide with court meetings is that we would do the work session probably in the morning, take a break for lunch, and then come into regular court session in the afternoon.
Sounds good.
I like it. I like it a lot. Yep.
And we have a template for garden variety reimbursement grant for the small business that comes in and whatnot. I would suggest that we think about the criteria and the evaluation of how much grant fund is funding, what percentage this should be funded, or what dollar amount, the evaluation for that.
And some other things too, I mean, we'll get into it more in depth in the work session, but I think we also need to be thinking about, one of my concerns is that quite a few of the entities that we're funding are using those funds for operational stuff. And I am A-okay with doing that right now. But there's a reality that those funds at some point may not be there. And so I think part of our work needs to be encouraging those entities to be moving towards their own sustainability with an eye toward, these funds they have a sunset. And so and when they go away, we're gonna have a whole lot of organizations. If they're not putting in place sustainability plans, all in 1 year, we will have entities coming up saying we can't operate without county support, and we won't have the money that we have now to be able to support them. So that, I think, needs to be part of the discussion too. So we'll capture all of those kinds of discussions, but as long as we're generally okay with this, and I think we'll probably notice the first work session for Arlington on February 6th and dig right into the discretionary fund.
What time?
requests. How long do you guys want to go? Do you want to do 2 hours, 3 hours?
Well, this first one's in Arlington, so.
Sandy and I are traveling.
And Nathan and Kelly.
And Nathan and Kelly, or Nathan and just.
Oh, well, yeah, Nathan will be.
I mean, I'm okay with starting at 9 or 10.
I think-
Depends on how long
I like
you guys.
9.
I can do that, yeah.
Okay. We'll try, see if we can maybe even do 1 3-hour work session and get
Yeah.
where we need to be.
Because if we get to a point where we can move forward with the loans, then, you know, and get started with that if we are happy with the grants. As much as we can get done in one session would be great.
Okay. So we'll do a notice on February 6th then for our first work session on that. Okay. Still in the paperwork here. Okay, consider approval of Anderson Perry proposal for Lone Rock Bridge project. Here's my nice paper I was looking for. Okay, so this came before the court in December. There was not an agreement drafted at the time that Ruben felt comfortable with. There is an agreement now, correct, Ruben? That you
Yes.
feel comfortable with the draft?
Well, what it is when we put this out to bid, well, I guess we didn't technically do a bid, we did a qualifications-based procurement for engineering services. And as part of seeking the engineer, we provided a sample contract that had all the contract terms and conditions that are required by law and that we should have. So what Anderson Perry supplied was this agreement for engineering services. which deals more with the receivables. What are their specific tasks that they're gonna accomplish? Whereas the sample contract was more of the egghead legal stuff like consideration, what documents, control, liability, insurance, all that. So what Anderson Perry provided was great, but it doesn't meet with the standards that we need to, and it doesn't meet with the contract that we previously provided to them through the RFP process. So what I did is, and I think I sent this to Sandy, is took the Anderson Perry agreement, labeled it Exhibit A, referenced it as a scope of work in this, in the sample contract, filled in the amounts of the sample contract, such as the maximum amount of $250,000, who we're engaging, and such. So it's ready for court approval and to be shipped off to Anderson Perry for them to review. Shouldn't have any surprises because they received a copy of the sample contract when they got their RFP documents.
Okay, so we just need to approve the contract itself?
Yes.
For the proposal?
Both. We've never approved the proposal.
Correct, but it's just labeled as an Exhibit A scope of work.
Okay.
So if
Can
we're,
we approve?
So we
if we're
approve.
approving this one, then that's approving the scope of work one by reference.
The agreement for engineering services?
Mhm.
Okay. So, I will make that motion. I'll move to approve the agreement for engineering services with Anderson Perry for services related to the Lone Rock Bridge replacement project.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agreement for engineering services with Anderson Perry for services related to the Lone Rock Bridge replacement project. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will be very happy. Okay. Moving on. This one was the thick. What's next? Okay, 6.5, consider auditor RFP proposal submissions.
Can you remind me, did we contact a few firms or?
Yeah, so we sent out requests for quotes to 10 firms based on their qualifications, what they did, and locality, so keeping them somewhere close to us.
10, we only got back 2?
Yeah, we got 2 responses from those 10.
Well, you two are more of the numbers folks, but what I saw in this was, or my, I guess, initial impression was, although Barnett and Morrow is more money, there was a reason that you guys went out for bid, which was sort of a public need or good, I guess, to change some things up and just have fresh eyes on it. And so, to me, I know that it's more expensive between the two, but if the whole purpose was to get fresh eyes on it, it feels like that is where, that's where I'm leaning towards going.
And that's when, that was my thought too. It's not that much more. It's a little bit more, but I think it'd be worth it.
Yeah, the whole point was we wanted to make some changes, and Nathan felt like, although, what we've been getting has been good, we still make some changes.
Well, how long, how
It's
long?
been-
It's like 20 years or something?
15, 20 years,
A very long time.
I can't remember for sure, but it was a
I
long
mean, it seems like,
stretch.
is there best practices for how often you should change your auditor?
Like every 8 or 10 years.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
museum, they want us to do every 5.
Yeah, so I feel like best practice would dictate that we would need to go with the new firm. So any other thoughts? Is there a motion?
This is for, remind me again, this fiscal year, just so I can write it down.
The coming fiscal year.
So 1920.
1920, the fiscal year that will start in July.
Just want to write it down, foggy. I know. Okay, now, so I'm confused because it says the price, for the first price, it stays for the year.
Yeah. it's
In
graduating.
2019.
There's a graduating.
So it would actually be for 18, 19, not 19, 20. The first year would be,
No, it'll
they're
be
going to
for-
audit the fiscal year 18, 19.
Yes,
That's what I want to know.
yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, they will audit this year, yes.
And when do they usually come? Is it in the fall?
Well, they work on it throughout the year, and then in usually November, they will actually, well, the past company would come in end of October, early November, and actually spend several days on site. But way prior to that, they're collecting information. I send copies of the minutes as they're approved. They're working throughout the year.
I guess, so, this is a question I guess I would have for Nathan. So I just wanted to make sure we got the timing right, because it seemed like when we went out for the RFPs, we talked about, I thought he said for next year, and I don't know which next year he was talking about.
So it would be the audit for the year that we're in now. So they can't really do it until we get to the end of the fiscal year.
So has the other company been doing a lot of work already throughout,
So they've just completed or are in the process of completing the audit for last fiscal year. And they should be probably next month giving us a report.
So the time's right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You say it. Do you want to make the motion? I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I move to select Barnett and Morrow to provide audit services for Gilliam County beginning in fiscal year 2018-19.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to select Barnett and Morrow to provide audit services for Gilliam County in fiscal year 2018-19. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. 6.6. To my end here. Discuss resolution of 2006 IGA with the Port of Arlington. So I assured the Port of Arlington that we would not actually be discussing the IGA today, which is why they do not have anybody in the room. The purpose of putting it on was to see if there is an appetite for the court to schedule a joint meeting with the Port of Arlington Board to have a discussion about the funds and come to a resolution on what we think should happen with them.
Yes.
Okay, you're on board with that, Leslie?
Yes.
Okay. So that is mine too, and so I think we'll have Sandy reach out to Peter and find a date.
So do you guys want to either in a regular meeting or a work session
That's my question.
have some internal discussions before we go to the joint meeting?
But does this need to be a work session, or is this, how do we do it?
Well, if it's all of you, we'd have quorum. So we would need to do a work session. It would need to be announced to the public meeting, or if you wanted to just designate one representative from the county court and then met with one representative from the board. board, or I guess the port board is 5, so you can meet with 2, then you wouldn't have a quorum. But it's really up to you as to how you want to propose structuring this. And then really, I mean, it's just a public notice thing. You put the notice out, this is where you're meeting, this is what you're meeting about. And you don't necessarily have to take public comment or have any other items. But it's really up to you. But if you are all meeting, it is a meeting.
What do you think?
Well, I'd like to see all of us at the table.
Okay,
How do you feel about that?
so joint meeting. Okay, so it sounds like a joint meeting for the sort of pre-meeting.
And is that a work session?
I would,
Or,
so if the 3 of us
Could
want
be.
to be on the same page about what our position is, we would have to do probably a work session.
Before we go.
oh,
And
I
I'm not
didn't,
sure
wanna do that?
When we want to schedule, the big joint meeting, I
Right.
was just wanting to clarify that if you guys wanted to have an internal meeting to discuss what the 3 of you would like to see come out of it before we speak with the port board, so that I can make sure I'm not scheduling things in the wrong order.
that's what more what I was talking about. Was a work session with
Both sides.
both sides.
I'm
A
okay.
giant work session. But whatever you, I mean, I don't know.
I'm okay. What do you think, Sharon?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to present a united front. So,
Well, you don't know that
Well,
unless you guys
yeah.
talk about it.
I don't know.
okay, I didn't say that.
We could, do you think that we need to meet first? Just us?
I mean, the thing is, right,
Just gonna hash it out, big meeting.
we'll hash it out in a public meeting, a smaller public meeting, or we'll hash it out in a big, I think either way, I'm not sure that actually pre-meeting is
Necessary?
going to be necessary.
Okay.
Because I think we'll each come to it with our own opinions, and those will come out.
Well, that and we need more facts from
Yes.
from the port
From the port,
on,
okay.
this agreement is fine, but it doesn't tell us what, I don't know the nitty-gritty of what happened or where, where the money is or everything. I think that's what we need to know, and before we can make any kind of decision.
So then we would be,
And their intent.
sounds like a consensus is then a joint work session.
And I'd like to just address the fact that I represent the board. I mean, most
bothers
of
me
the
too.
time, my contacts out here in Gilliam County have been very helpful, and that I know what's going on already, and jump in. But in this instance, I'm gonna recommend, if it comes down to any sort of legal wrangling, that both you and the board get separate legal counsel. Just for this one matter. I think that actually it'll lead to a more efficient resolution. There won't be the conflict issue then. And I'm happy to set that up. I actually have a short list of counsel that's fairly close. And so we can, or I'm happy to just facilitate that, need something on this.
I mean, I think we're going to need to have, to avoid conflict, so.
Okay.
So just let me know if that's the case, and I'll give them more. That's okay.
That makes sense.
Okay, so is that the consensus?
Yes.
Let's do that. I'll when Peter gets back to town, I'll talk to him about setting up a joint date. We can move forward from there.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, last thing under new business is consider approval of sale of Arlington lot number 801.
Okay, and Judge Farrar, I will need to announce my intent to abstain from a vote on agenda item 6.7 due to a conflict of interest created by my relationship to the purchaser of the property of Arlington lot number 801.
Okay. Leslie? any thoughts on that?
6.7?
This is It's
It
4.7.
It was
that
4.7 and got moved down.
We moved it out of consent because
Thank
of
you.
Sherry's
Thank you.
comment.
That's probably, thank you, Sherry.
Say, don't breathe on it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It met obviously our minimum.
Yeah,
Everything's-
it met the minimum bid that was established, which was 5,000, which is what the bid was. Sale price is actually at $5,370 because of sheriff's fees and advertising, stuff like that. So there's no reason that.
And it'll come back to us in the contract, so.
Okay.
If you have any concerns about it, Leslie?
I didn't have any concerns.
Then I'd move to approve the sale of Arlington lot number 801. Okay, it's been moved and approved, or moved and seconded to approve the sale of Arlington lot number 801. Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Who seconded that?
Yeah, Leslie seconded. Okay. 7.0, court member reports. Leslie? You can keep it short if you want to.
It will be short. I went to the BOPTA training in Hood River. I think it was the worst possible weather day we've had. Not everyone from Condon was able to make it, but 3 out of the 4 were there. It's pretty exciting stuff. 9 to 4.
I had that folder in my house, I know how exciting it is.
Yeah. So that was good. Got that taken care of. I also attended the governor's inaugural gala, which was very nice. And I got to see a lot of people and mingle and caught up with some of a lot of other county commissioners, ran into them, and so it was good. It was a very nice event. This morning, I was able to, I kind of checked in with the health district while I was in town.
Literally checked in.
Checked in. But while I was there, I was able to, I took the opportunity to speak with Holly, and, she showed me some stuff. She showed me the remodel, how the dentist office's remodel was going and stuff. So it's, but just anytime I'm in there, I'm very impressed with that facility and how they're doing over there. And that's about it.
Okay.
Oh, I did meet with the roadmaster, but that's probably going to happen frequently from here on out, so you guys probably don't want to hear about it every time that we meet. And I do plan to meet with the road. I mean, we don't.
Got it.
Yes.
And then are you guys moving forward on the advisory council? Did you guys?
On the
Okay.
department advisory.
I'm reassigning that to bring back.
Well, I saw that in the minutes, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, I don't remember saying that. I was like, I don't remember them telling me I had to do it. And then I went back and watched it, and I was like, oh, I did. And I sat there and I went,
Basically, I think, and this may be just mostly Ruben, what we need to do to be able to create that.
Take
So
care of it.
I looked at the bylaws that Dewey sent over and bringing them back with an email regarding those. As far as I know, we don't have a specific ordinance that says how many people have to constitute a committee or how it needs to be formed. So really, we're in a position of just winging it how we want to. So it's taking the bylaws and getting them into something that we want to work with, and then just doing a simple resolution.
Okay.
So I'm working with Dewey on getting those. I want to keep not necessarily really neat bylaws. I'm going to turn them into the resolution. So that's what we have, is a resolution stating what the parameters are. And so it's just getting those.
And then will we publish the, however many positions are open?
Mhm.
And have
Right.
folks
Public.
submit interest.
Yes, and the initial document I reviewed had something like 9 positions and 9 alternates or something.
Oh, yeah.
We're not,
Oh, my gosh.
no, we're not
Doing
doing
it
that.
context.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah, that's a few too many.
I did see your comments, I agree.
okay, so,
Maybe like 5 to 7.
That's what I responded,
I was
but-
thinking about.
exactly, yeah, something like that.
That sounds good.
So is that something for scheduling that could be ready by the first week in February, or do you need more time than that?
That depends on Dewey. Do you want me to try to get it ready and then we'll,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'd be for it so that we can appoint members in time for the budget
Yeah.
cycle on Dewey's side.
Get volunteers before they get too busy.
Yeah,
That too.
exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Sherry?
Well, unfortunately, I was gonna meet with Nan and Scott at Art Mills, but we had a family emergency, and so I had to call that off. So, gosh, I went to County College with my friends, and we had a fabulous time.
I feel kind of left out.
We missed having you there, I really did, yeah.
You need to
missed
pick
a
up
lot of-
sessions, come on over. There were some
We learned a lot.
commissioners that sat in on some
There
refresher
were.
courses,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So it was good?
It was, yeah.
Mostly public meeting laws, public documents, that kind of stuff.
Was this kind of the
Lots of
101?
information.
Was this the 101?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How not to get in trouble.
Yes, that's what
Yeah, where I learned how to.
That's how Sherry learned how to say your conflicts.
I know, that was very,
Fresh from County College.
Yeah, it's going to be invaluable, what we learn.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, I don't think so I'm going to try to reschedule my meeting with Nan and Scott next time Scott's up.
So I did county college as well. One of our cohorts is out of Wasco County, so I had some conversations with Kathy about building codes and a few other areas of joint interest that were helpful over dinner, so that was very useful. A few other things. We had a request from our staff to consider changing the hours that the building is open to the public. And specifically, and I run this by all of the other electeds, and they are all okay with this, but we were looking at keeping the doors locked until 8:30 and then closing them and locking them again at 5. And the reason behind that is so that the staff have just a little bit of uninterrupted time, protected time in the mornings to take care of things like grants and stuff like that, where when people are constantly coming into their offices can sometimes disrupt just their flow of getting work done, and especially when they're on a deadline. So
What time is it currently?
I think it
open?
opens.
As soon as somebody gets here?
7:30.
So maintenance gets here at 6:30, so the doors open then, and depending on what's going on, they usually lock around 6. If there's a meeting being held, say the board's holding their meeting here, then the timers are reset to match that, and so they don't actually lock until after that meeting, sometimes 8, 9 o'clock at night.
And that's all controlled through, Kelly can adjust those when the doors lock and open. But I mean, from my vantage point, I thought the public officials were all on board with that anyway, but I think that might be a way to give our staff a little bit more time. I think that'll increase their productivity and some of the sort of when they need to be at a computer, like dug into a grant request or things like that, just to give them a little bit of time that's protected. Most other counties, when you talk, and not most, but quite a few of the other counties do have public hours that are different from when their staff is on the clock, basically, to do provide some of that protected time. So if you guys don't have any objections to that, then I would go ahead and ask Kelly to make that change. And that way the public also is aware of why we're doing that.
You might want to put something in the paper,
Yeah, probably should.
wearing some signs up.
Thankfully, we have the paper sitting here. Put something in the paper.
It's in the paper already.
Good as done.
Second one, Department of Energy siting analyst brief. So I forwarded the email that we received from the Department of Energy asking if we wanted to comment on some changes, amendments that the Montague project is requesting for their, I forget which phase it is. It's
Phase
not,
1.
is it the immediate phase?
Or is it phase 2?
Oh, no,
They're
it's
talking
phase
about battery
2.
operated in the.
Siting, it's the battery operated stuff in the.
And
Okay,
solar?
so it is phase 2 then.
I think it's phase 2. So Michelle, originally they gave us the opportunity to comment, but they gave us like 10 days to comment. And it was after our last meeting and like it was not gonna work for us to comment. So Michelle got back to them and said there was absolutely no way we're gonna be able to comment by our deadline. Could we extend it? And they gave us February 20th. They also offered to come to our next meeting on the 6th if we would like to ask questions about what's in the amendment, and then from there make a decision about whether we wanted to devote any time to commenting on it. Because we are technically the advisory council, advisory committee.
Right.
So we have a role in weighing in on that. They won't necessarily change based on what we say. But there are some things that will look different potentially on Shutler and that is probably worth us at least knowing what the plan is and
More
why
information.
they cited it the way that they cited it. So if that is a benefit to you, then we would add that to the 6th. We're already doing the work session in the morning on our, so the
Still
question
10
is, do we want them to just come in as part of our regular agenda? And we'll try to keep the agenda, the rest of the agenda condensed as much as we can to give them time. Does that sound good? Okay. So I will ask Michelle. Michelle is the contact on that. So I'll have Michelle and Sandy coordinate to make sure that they know where we're meeting and are there to brief us.
Okay.
The last bit was quarterly report scheduling. Okay, so traditionally, we would have our staff come in.
I was gonna say, I haven't seen this.
And then there's a number of other individuals that typically would come in and brief us on some sort of a pattern. So my question is, for you all, do you want to continue with having the staff come in and do quarterly reports? Is there some other, would we like to just check in with them? Would you like them to use court time to come talk to us? What would be helpful in keeping up to date on what they're up to?
I think a quarterly report is good, but I don't think they need to come and sit in here, and because they do one in writing. If they could just submit it to all of us, and if we have questions, then we could approach them for questions, and then if something comes up that needs to come before the council, then.
Okay.
What do you
Would,
think,
Well,
Commissioner Weatherall?
I am just, I'm just getting it, so I haven't had much of a chance to think about it, but I think that's not a bad idea. I just haven't thought about it. There have been times in the past, though, that I've thought, why are we getting this again? You know, I mean, it seems like the frequency was a little bit.
and to be clear, the staff will still be coming before us for things that they need us to take action on. I think
It's just an update.
historically, it's been, they come in for the quarter, they tell us what they've done the past 3 months. It's usually not actionable for us, and although it might be useful information, maybe there's a better way to get that information. So, okay, so we would be looking at potentially doing written reports from the staff, and kind of determining, do you think quarterly is the right tempo? Is there,
Or longer.
or do you want to do semi-annually? Because right now we have sort of half of the staff is coming in on quarterly and half semi-annually, which I'm not really sure why, why some are what, but,
Now, some of these, though, aren't staff.
no, we'll
I mean,
get
I'm
to
looking-
those
So,
next.
all right, so
I was
the
gonna say.
lighter colored cells are internal, and then the darkers are external
Okay, so,
organizations.
okay, thank you. So right now, we're just talking about our internal.
Right, because the conditional use permit requires Waste Management to give us a quarterly report. But is it required in person? I'll have to read that.
I don't know how it says.
You like in person?
We get monthly tonnage
You don't have to
reports.
whisper that.
It's as loud as I'm getting.
Oh,
No, I
oh.
like
She
it.
likes in person.
I was whispering.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. Yeah.
From Waste Management?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to see, I have to see.
Okay.
Well, in the port, you know, some of these.
Yes,
are good.
true.
So I'm thinking, maybe let's just start, the quarterly are the ones that are most. I'm recommending that the staff, that we not have them do an initial quarterly report, and that we can kind of sort out. It might be good to get our feet under us a little bit and see where there may be opportunities for us to engage with the staff, just on a regular, how we're doing business. I mean, we may feel like that, I mean, especially like you, Leslie, with the road and weed departments might feel like that's really not something that we need to devote court time, and maybe there's a better way to convey that information. So,
It's true.
so for the staff, maybe we can just table that piece of it. For the other folks that are within the quarterly, that are the dark ones, Alan Anderson, you prefer, Leslie, have them in person, right?
You know, we usually have a lot of questions.
Okay.
That, and we
I
need
like-
to see what the condition use permit actually says is required of them.
Okay. Since we're a new court, how about for this first one for sure, let's have them come in person and have Sandy put that on the calendar. And,
You know, yeah, we can adjust this, you know, and we can try something, and if it doesn't
Right.
work, we go back to,
Right.
you know.
And on that subject, can we make sure that Waste Management is telling us exactly what numbers they're giving us? Like, is it first quarter, or third quarter, or fourth quarter? You can't come in March and tell us that's your first quarter report, because the first quarter hasn't ended
Is
yet.
it year-to-date, is some weird?
So when he comes in March, is he giving us fourth quarter of the previous year?
Maybe we should ask,
or-
maybe we should ask them.
So
Well, I think
part of
we-
the reason that happens is that we've traditionally had them come in at the last meeting of the quarter, which is the one that's held in Arlington,
Right,
which is before the end of the quarter.
right. Which
So
makes
if
no
we want
sense,
to
because
change
that's not a quarterly
if we
report.
want to change the schedule and have them
Come
come
in
to Condon
come
instead,
early.
after the quarter has ended,
That makes more
that might ease it.
That makes more sense.
I do
And tell them
think-
we want quarterly reports, we don't want just numbers.
Not
Not
that-
year-to-date, not as of.
If there's
the
something
20th of
specific
September.
Right.
that you want from them or from anyone, just send me an email saying what it is, and I'll pass it on to them and say, this is what the court would like to see.
Okay, so we'll get that on the calendar with Alan. The port with Peter. I mean, I think we're gonna see quite a bit of Peter on the budget and the IGA discussion. So I'm wondering if maybe, I think part of the IGA discussion may revolve around our relationship with the port over economic development. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe that one needs to be postponed until we kind of get a better lay of.
So are we just
What our
talking about,
relationship's gonna
just because I'm trying to catch up, because I'm so fuzzy. Are we just talking about what we're going to do this quarter, or are we talking about changing their schedule so they don't report quarterly anymore? Or we just want to skip the first quarter?
It can be either. Really, I think what it is these folks are scheduled to see us in the first quarter. And so my initial question is, do you want them to see us in this first quarter? Based on the previous quarters.
So two issues. Do we want to push back the second quarter, and then do we want their routine to be quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think the routine, the larger picture is something that doesn't necessarily have to come up today. But do we want to see these guys the first quarter is something that we need to be putting into the schedule if you want to see them.
Right.
Not staff.
Not staff, yes on Alan, because until we figure out what the arrangement actually
Right.
needs to be.
Mhm.
Peter, I think we're gonna see a couple of times.
Yeah.
Brian Hunt, I'm wondering, Sherman County does theirs written.
Yeah, I can't see any point in
Yeah,
having to come.
that's,
Tell us what he wrote down, because that's pretty much what it is.
and that's pretty much, he just pretty much covers what's in the written. You unless he really wants to come talk.
I know part of it was he wanted to come introduce himself and give a little bit of program background to the new members, which he did for Sherman County as well.
You want to schedule that?
If he wants to come, otherwise I think we can tell him he can send a report. Of course, I was here the last time he gave a report, so.
I was here too.
I was here.
Okay.
So where do we land on that?
We did it.
Got up in the air. I think we landed on, does he feel passionate about coming to meet us?
He wants to, yes.
Okay, and if he does, then he can come
We'll
this
give him
time,
some time.
and in the future, he can give us a written report. That's my,
Okay, works for
Okay.
me. And then for PCDC, are you guys interested in having them come in and give us an update on where they are with the housing? Would that be helpful this quarter? Or do you want to
I would
postpone?
like to
Okay.
know what's going on.
Okay.
And their meetings are at a time of the day when I don't necessarily can get away. So I've been able to go to their meetings, and I'd like to kind of know what's,
Okay.
hopefully my situation changes and I'll be able to do that.
So to sum up, we'll plan on scheduling with Alan. Brian will come in at some point to give us just a brief overview, and we'll look at getting PCDC on the calendar for a housing sort of status update. And we'll push off Peter for now, because we will see him on a number of other issues. Sound good?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, any announcements?
So before we move off of that, so I know some of these say semi-annual, but that's still, we're in that 6-month period. If we can discuss those as well. Because there's no reason they couldn't come in at the next meeting versus 3 months from now.
I mean, it may, I'm gonna put this out there, but I feel like, at least at this point, well, you're gonna meet with Arden Mills, potentially. Most of these folks are asking for private meetings with me anyway, to update me on everything they think I need to know. I would like to keep the county court meetings focused on us moving forward on things that we need to clear the decks on.
Okay.
And not being updated on things that have happened previously until we get to a point where we can allocate more time to some of those other things. I feel like the backlog is significant enough that people are adding things onto our agenda when they come, and that's fine, but there's a limit to how much all of us can take on, and I worry about us getting distracted from our core missions by trying to be updated by everybody continually. So that would be my recommendation, is that there's some that may be statutorily required or that we have an interest in pursuing. Housing is one of those big issues, for instance, that I think it's worthwhile to set some of our time that would otherwise need to go to moving forward on some kind of business. But for some of these that it's not a pressing thing that we need to be updated on, I don't think we should make something right now until we get some of these other things
Okay.
I totally agree.
under
A lot
control.
of these too have come in very recently.
Yeah.
They were all in, a lot of them were in
December.
December.
Yeah.
So,
So good to go.
okay. Announcements. Frontier TeleNet is on Friday at 1 o'clock. Tri-County Court is on Friday at
10.
10. That's all I know. Anything else that, under announcements?
We did get that email from Metro that they'd like to
Oh, right.
also come and meet with you guys. So that's another thing. Is that something you want to get done right away, or?
I mean, the challenge, right, of Metro is getting them all to come out at once.
And typically when they come, they do a tour of the site and make it a whole day of, so it's not just contingent on us, I don't believe.
I think it's worthwhile to start the discussion of, with Waste Management and them of when they might be interested in coming out, because I have a feeling this is going to be a multi-month process to get them scheduled, and their schedules coordinated to come out. So I think it's worthwhile, I think, to start that.
We're
process.
interested in participating when they make a plan, because they're not gonna plan around us. They're gonna plan around them.
Okay, any other announcements? All right, next.
Judge, I have one question.
Sure.
I like the way the consent agenda and everything goes so quickly, but is there a timeline of putting this information on the consent agenda on the website beforehand? Because some of the things like the Zayo right-of-way application, I'm really interested to know what their route is. And instead of calling and asking you, hey, can you send me A, B, and C? Is there some time that you're going to put this information on anyway? So then, because a lot of it's skipped over because you have the information and we don't.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a few items that I'm interested in and seeing the documentation. Is there any plans to make that available public online, your packets?
I would like to
I
move
would
in that
too.
direction.
I think it's a great idea.
The city's is. The city-
Yeah, ours is. I'd be glad to give anyone a demo on that. Let me know. I mean, there's a couple different programs. Lori Anderson's the one that gave me one program, and there was one for like just schools, and the one we use. But it's just nice because you can go in and you don't have to look at it all.
Yeah,
You can go
you
into
can
the
pick and
document you
choose.
want to look at and poke on it, but.
Which today might have been helpful for me. Because
Yeah.
I was getting lost in my packet a little bit.
Yeah, when it gets really big, so, anyway, if there was a time, or if you need any information online,
Yeah.
I would be glad to give it to you, but.
I think
It's a
it's
great idea.
worthwhile to do that. I think the more transparent we can be.
I know when I was
Better.
sitting out there and agenda items, and you guys all had the information, and we were all in the dark on what you were even talking about, so
And even on the tape, when you watch it later, it's nice to be able to say, oh, what amounts are they talking about? And to be
Right.
able to go in and see what
The
you're
actual
releasing too,
document.
so.
Yeah,
anyway,
great suggestion.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, next meeting is February the 6th, correct, in Arlington. It will be, we'll do the work session in the morning at 9 to 12 for the financial stuff, and then we'll do at 1 o'clock for our regular meeting.
Are we gonna see what the availability is at Courthouse building?
So I have tried calling like 9 times and haven't been able to get hold of anybody there.
I'll call her when we're done and see if I can get her on a different number.
Okay. Any other business? Okay, it's 2:38, we're still within my 2 hours. I'll adjourn the meeting.